welcome you to Expert Series in a way to learn here at IESE Barcelona. Thank you very much for joining us today. And today we are speaking with Maiques, CEO of Neuroelectrics, a company that is developing new technologies to monitor and stimulate the brain. Hello, Anna. Are you
Hello,
there?
good morning.
Good morning. Well, time permitting, we will take questions. To ask questions, please click on Ask a Question below the video screen, and we will try to answer questions at the end of the conversation. So here are my questions, Anna. Well, it's a pleasure to having you here because I've been reading about you, and you have received a prize for women innovators and from the European Commission in 2014, and also you were nominated by IESE, no, as one of the most influential entrepreneurs under 40 in Spain in 2010. So it's a pleasure to having you with us today. And my first question is, in what ways are new technologies helping us to know more about the brain and how to stimulate it?
Yes, so first, thanks of all for IESE to invite me to this series of interviews. I'm sorry for the delay. Well, I think that the brain, we have humans managed to survive a lot of diseases, like the flu and a lot of diseases that we used to die from. But now I think that the next challenge is going to be to understand the brain. We don't yet know, why some people develop Alzheimer's and others don't, Parkinson's. As we age more and more, the brain is going to become more important because at the end we don't want to live longer, but we want to live better, right? So it doesn't mind that you are 100 years old if you cannot remember anything, right, or enjoy your life. So I think that new technologies have a key role in both trying to have a window on the brain. Can we understand when you're going to develop Parkinson's or Alzheimer's even before the symptoms appear? Even before the trembling, even before the disease gives some symptoms. And the other thing is, if we can identify early enough that your brain health is suffering, what can technology do to improve health? So one of the things we are doing at Neuroelectrics is developing a neurostimulation or a non-invasive brain stimulation device that can help patients with Alzheimer's to recover, certain function of the brain. So I think that technologies are going to be key in a lot of brain diseases because drugs do not make the hit point. Drugs are not able to cure depression. Drugs only are helping 1/3 of the patients with epilepsy. So I think that for entrepreneurs in the audience, I think there are great opportunities in brain tech, but I think in general in health, to help humans survive longer, but more importantly, much better.
That's very interesting. And well, this topic is based on learning. So what do you think about new technologies will help us to understand better how the brain works in the learning processes, and also in how can we apply these new techniques in learning disabilities, such as dyscalculia, for example, or ADHD?
Yeah, so at the company we have a couple of projects that are actually learning disabilities such as dyscalculia or ADHD. I think that, when you saw in the beginning, when they taught us about the brain and they will put in the lobes and saying this is, the occipital region is the visual cortex, the, rational motor cortex. I think that that's kind of wrong. The brain is a network and everything is connected, so they are not isolated areas. So in learning as well, I think we need to understand better how different areas of the brain are connected and how is the learning process acquired. And I think that's why technologies are going to be key. For example, EEG, which is reading your brain waves to understand if you have more, let's say, alpha waves, if you are more attentive in ADHD. So you could at least, for example, in an IESE class, you can put some EEGs and see what students are reacting better or worse, or they're more attentive. So I think that learning is a very exciting area. I think it's difficult still for the research field to understand how to overcome learning difficulties. But we are seeing in our company a lot of progress, both in dyscalculia as well as in ADHD.
That's great. And is it possible to stimulate the brain using these sorts of new technologies you are working on in order to increase learning of normal people or normal developed people?
So that's a very good question. We are now based in the US where I'm right now, and we have had, DARPA and the military doing some projects in which they were trying to do cognitive enhancement, right? So improvements in healthy subjects. We have seen some improvements. So I think we can make people smarter, but what we don't know is, does it come at the cost of another function? So that's why I'm saying that I like to see the brain as a non-zero sum. So when you're improving one function of the brain, we do think it may come at the cost of another function. So that's what the research is kind of working right now to understand when you're enhancing a healthy brain, what are the side effects, right? And this is what, for example, I know the military has been doing some research on here in the US. But yes, I think that coffee makes you more awake, stimulation may, make you more awake, more, cognitive enhanced. But I would be careful to allow people to use my device on the consumer side, because I don't know what the repeated use of a brain stimulation device may have, what effects it may have on the brain. That's why we as Neuroelectrics have started in the medical field, because we do believe that in a sick brain, using our technology is going to be much more safe.
Okay. And how can the greater knowledge of the human brain be put to use in machine learning?
So machine learning we are using, for example, when you put one of our devices on, and you can go to neuroelectrics.com to see how our device looks on, you can gather your brain waves, your EEG, electroencephalography. So this is, for example, a 32 channels of EEG. What we do is we use machine learning to process the data coming from those EEG. For example, for the Michael J. Fox Foundation in Parkinson's, we have processed data coming from 700 patients and try to analyze biomarkers that are not visible to the eye in order to predict what patients are going to develop Parkinson's years before they develop the symptoms. So machine learning, deep learning, these are key competencies that are helping us a lot right now to process brain data. And I would really encourage, the students that are listening to us to have a closer look at those disciplines. I think they're going to grow more and more, especially in the health sector, as we gather more and more data from wearables and from many other sources.
Okay. And how do you see machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the human brain interacting?
Can you repeat the question, sorry?
How do you see machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the human brain interacting?
Well, this is a good question. We wrote a paper in 2014, which was it had a lot of impact, in which we were doing brain-to-brain communication. We know that people like Elon Musk with Neuralink, we know Facebook, computer interfaces. I think kind of like a very futuristic, but can you type directly from your brain to a computer? Can directly with a computer or your iPhone or another machine only with your brain signals. I think that that's the role that artificial intelligence and neurotechnology are going to play. Probably not in the short term, but in the medium term, we are going to see new interfaces for humans to work with computers. And accessing directly to the brain is going to be an important one. There are a lot of ethical questions as well as safety questions. Will you let anybody implant something in your brain?
Yeah.
You know, what does it mean to have an implant in your brain? So, you know, it's like the bionic, you know, future of the brain, right? And I am myself involved in a lot of ethical discussions on, you know, the use of these technologies to enhance human brain and human communication. But I think that, you know, it's also an exciting area of work, because I think that along the way we may be helping a lot of people that, you know, currently are in total need.
Yeah, it's like science fiction, but it's coming true. And so
yeah, I think it's shorter term than we think. I think it's going to happen faster than we think.
Well, so you are working on brain-to-brain communication, as you say, no? And it's but could you tell us how can this work in and or be used in teaching and learning from others? We will be able to learn from directly brain to brain in the future.
Well, one of the things that, you know, when we wrote our paper on brain-to-brain communication, one of the things we were saying is, when you look at the future, can you use, this is very long, you know, like looking into the future, don't get me as this is possible now, but can you use collective brains to solve a problem? So imagine, like, right now the teacher poses a question on a mathematical challenge, right? And you have to solve it. What about if all the brains could work synchronized to solve that problem? Can you transmit brain to brain a mathematical concept without having to explain it in words, right? Can you transmit emotions brain to brain? So I think that learning is going to be very interesting as an experience as these technologies develop. I think that the very short term for learning is going to be, can we use simple technologies like brain monitoring to understand the impact of learning, right? Wearing EEGs, for example, or can you stimulate the brain to help on the learning process? That's like the short term. The medium long term would be, are there going to be any other ways, you know, to enhance the learning experience that it really has a collective thinking, or it can really transmit thoughts directly into brains? You know, if Elon Musk or Facebook, they succeed in putting an implant in your brain, maybe the IESE teacher will just, you know, throw the concept directly into your brain, right? So those are the science fiction ideas of learning. But as I have said, short term, we have seen EEG helping to monitor the impact of learning, and we have seen brain stimulation as a way to improve learning. In Oxford, for example, in children with dyscalculia, these kids had a lot of difficulties in learning with numbers, and we stimulate them for 20 minutes, and then they had improvement in math. This has been shown in our website in a Stephen Hawking program that is in our website, and it's run by Dr. Professor Roy Kadosh in Oxford, if somebody wants to look at this particular area of expertise.
Okay. And do you think this technology, well, you were talking about ethical questions, and do you think this technology will be safe in future, preventing us from being tracked by other companies with other intentions?
So that's the part that I don't know. First of all, when you have something implanted in your brain, you know, it's there, right? It's in your body. And I think that the ethical consequences are going to be who's going to have access to that data, who's going to control that chip, right?
Exactly.
I think it's like, you know, the debate we had with Facebook and data privacy recently, it's nothing compared to what may happen with implants in your brain. So I think that there are a lot of ethical consequences. To your word on like cognitive enhancement or learning, is it going to help to make the smarter and the richer and smarter? Is it going to help to bring the people that have more difficulties up to level? Is it going to be only accessible to people that can pay for it? So those are the debates that, you know, me, but a lot of people are currently discussing. Next week, I'm in a workshop in Harvard called Law and Aging. And it's like, you know, what about if these technologies can change your judgment, right? Or somebody's interfering with your judgment and you do a crime. You know, how do you protect somebody from, you know, saying that they are demented, and maybe there is a chip that it's, or a stimulation session that it's making them demented. So there are a lot of ethical issues that I think that society and probably governments will have to regulate.
Okay. Well, here we have a lot of questions from the people, and I'm going to ask you some of them. How does the brain work? And, well, the question is, how do you stop from getting distracted so much? And I ask one thing about that. Do you think your gadgets, your new products will help people to perform better in their jobs? Like being more aware of how the waves in their brains are changing, and when they need to stop in order to be more healthy in their work and in their life, to stop working or stop doing some things like addictive series or addictive behaviors?
Oh, very good question. So to the first question, how can you be less distracted? There is a beautiful book called The Distracted Mind by one of my advisors in UCSF called Adam Gazzaley. Check it out, The Distracted Mind. The Distracted Mind talks about how humans, because of technology, are being unable to focus. And he gives specific examples on how do you have to learn to focus again and take breaks and, make a very conscious effort to be focused. So I think that this is not, I think that what technology should solve, I think this is what humans, we should learn to regulate, meditation. He gives some techniques, because I think that technology and the stimulus we have around are making us very hard for us to focus, and we need to really get to be more focused. On using stimulation to learn more, I think this can be done. I mean, it could also happen that, for example, my stimulation device, let's look 3-5 years from now, maybe before you get into an IESE class, you get a stimulation in a particular area of the brain, and then you're more eager, to embrace or to learn those concepts in the classroom. For addictions, we know that if we stimulate the prefrontal cortex, which is this part of, the frontal part of your brain, your rational part becomes more aware. So for people with addictive disorders, we have seen that is the way that they try to prevent them from craving or from smoking and things like that. It's still under research, but yes, you can do you can apply stimulation to the frontal cortex to prevent things like addictions.
Great. Another question is, someone is asking, how can we stop overloading our brain with unnecessary thoughts and focus more on the important things? Do you think your field will help us to answer this question?
Can you repeat the question, sorry?
Someone is asking, how can we stop overloading our brain with unnecessary thoughts and focus more on the important things?
So that's a very good question, and that's why I like a lot this book, The Distracted Mind. The Distracted Mind kind of like, I think that there is a technique in which if you see that your brain is being overloaded with a lot of thoughts, I think you need to stop, and then you need to, maybe take a breath, meditate for a few seconds, and then focus on one single thought. So I think that it's more like focusing traditional techniques you have to use to be less distracted. I think that humans, we haven't been created to be dealing with so much information, and today there's too much information. So I think you need to make a conscious effort to focus in one thing and try to blank everything out. So when you are in the IESE class, you should try to just focus on a particular topic and try to bring all the other thoughts aside. And I think that there are techniques in meditation, in self-awareness that can help you. And I really recommend you I can send you the link after, to read this book that really explains what is the way to get focus.
Great, thank you. And how can we teach our brains to store more things in long-term memory?
The memory part is very difficult. We work with a lot of professors at MIT, and they are working with monkeys. And they're still trying to figure out how memories are formed. So the field of memory formation and memory storage is not that advanced as it may seem. So I don't have a clear answer, because I don't think it's how the brain is storing memories. Of course, if you look at the science fiction down the line, maybe you'll have external hard drive to keep the long-term memories, right? You can replay them from time to time. But right now, the brain has a very natural process of store memories, and it's not an easy process to understand how the brain is storing these memories.
Okay, a few questions more. Someone is asking, ADHD is considered a strength in some areas, and they ask, can an ADHD brain be taught to be stimulated by aspects that it currently is not stimulated by it to improve cognitive and attention capacities?
So I'm not an expert on ADHD. I know we are doing some work. We are doing a clinical trial, very large clinical trial coordinated in Germany to understand better how the ADHD kids, using EEG to monitor these ADHD kids and then stimulation to improve them. I think that, in a lot of cases, a brain that has ADHD may also have other strengths. As I was saying before, the brain is not a zero-sum organ. So I think that we have seen that, a lot of the main, the big artists of the world, or the big mimes, had some difficulties. They suffer from autism, they suffer from ADHD. So I think that I do agree with the question that having ADHD is not necessarily a bad thing. You need to deal with it, but maybe it's the education system that it's putting kids with ADHD, in a situation where they are not natural and they can be very creative and have other strengths. So I do think that part of the revolution we have in Spain and everywhere on ADHD is also the way we are teaching our kids, or forcing people to sit down on a classroom for 8 hours, right? So I think we are going to see changes. I hope that brain science and research can give answers to people on how the brain works in things with ADHD, but I do hope the systems, especially the education systems and then the work systems, will also adapt to embrace, these kind of people, people with autism, with ADHD, that I really think they need a different
approach,
framework of learning and working.
Perfect. I totally agree with you, and their time is over. So thank you so much, and thanks everybody for listening. And please do join us for the next interview. Follow our Crowdcast channel to be notified. Goodbye, and thank you, Anna.
Yeah, I'm sorry for the delay. I thank you all. You can send me any questions at anna.maiques@neuroelectrics.com or contact IESE to ask me additional questions. It was a pleasure talking to you all.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.